Hey, it's Greg Otten here with MaritimeGardening.com, and I'm going to plant some parsnips and carrots today. I got a garden bed here. It's south facing. It's on the bottom of a south facing slope, and from here over I planted parsnips last fall. Last year I noticed that I had for those that follow along, I let a couple of my parsnips go to seed every year, and they create this giant plant that's about 4 feet high, and I guess some of the seeds just fall all over the place. And what I noticed last year is that some of them came up on their own, and the ones that came up on their own did extremely well. So I thought, why not harness that and see if I can make that happen. So from here over I planted parsnips last fall. There's nothing going on yet, but we'll see what happens. But from here over I thought I'd do a little section where I plant some parsnips now in the spring. So it's it is technically spring. I got lots of areas in my garden where the ground is still frozen, and but here in this particular bed, because it's south facing, I guess, and because this seaweed mulch makes the soil dark, it's mostly thawed. And certainly from here over, this section I had maybe an 8-foot long piece of plastic. You can see like the seaweed here is a different color. It's much more sun-baked and blonde and bleached, I guess, sun-bleached. It's lighter in color, and it's because it's had the sun on it under plastic for the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks. So I decided to do about a 5-foot section here where I plant some parsnips now in the spring to see how they do in comparison to the parsnips that were planted over there in the fall. And then another section of the garden there I'm going to plant some carrots. This bed is on a slope here, and I just sort of dug out the ground and created a bed here a number of years ago. But it's nice and loose and deep, so I think it'll be really good for root vegetables. I have never planted root vegetables. Oh, actually there was one year I had potatoes growing here, but other than that, it's mostly just been things like beans and cucumbers and things that can climb up this fence here. But this year I decided to give this bed a break from that sort of thing and just plant long rooting type vegetables here. So from here over it's parsnips. We'll see what happens. If I don't see any action by I guess mid-April or so, I'll actually plant some parsnips here. I think it's a good spot for them. But today I'm going to plant some parsnips here. I got some mulch, and actually if you dig under the mulch you can see there's the odd worm kicking around. So the soil is definitely alive, and if you read the seed pack for things like parsnips and carrots, it says plant as soon as the soil can be worked. It's April 29th today, and the soil can be worked. So I'm going to plant them, and I guess I'll give people another example of working with mulches and growing with mulches and that sort of thing. I can actually see this has had plastic over for a few weeks. There's actually the odd weed that's began to germinate here, but that tells me that things are growing here, right? Tough plants that are early starting are growing here. The weeds tell you stuff. They're not all negative. So I got the odd weed growing here and the odd little thing started. So it tells me that this soil will support life. I mean, this has been under plastic, so of course, but all of those early plant as soon as the soil can be worked type plants, often what that means is that this seed can take a little frost, a little cold, and so on and so forth. It's been ridiculously cold here the last few weeks. For this time of the year, it's been -10 at night. So for late March, that's not, I guess, typical. It might be -5 or something like that. But anyway, looks like we're through that, and now we're getting into typical early spring temperatures where it's above 0 during the day and near 0 at night, and that's okay. And I had some time today, so I thought I'd just go ahead and do some planting here. So I'm going to plant some parsnips here. I got some seeds here, carrots and parsnips, provided by Vessi Seeds, my sponsor. If you want a deal, check out the coupon code in the description box for this video. You can get free shipping, which really adds up if you're ordering perennials. And I'm making little teeny tiny rows here. I'm going to plant my carrots. This seaweed's not the most ideal in certain regards because it's very spaghetti-like and gets all tangled. But I'll just create it so I'm down to the soil here. Soil's workable. And I'm just going to rough it up a little bit. Nothing too fancy. There's the odd worm in there, so that's a good sign that things are happening. Alright, so that piece of soil there is ready. I'll continue on and do that every hand span. My hand span is about 8 or 9 inches wide. I'll just continue on with that. By making these little hills of mulch, what you're doing is creating a tiny bit of windbreak for the area where the seeds are going to go, which helps a lot. From a seed's point of view, I mean, it doesn't look like much, but it's kind of a mountain from a seed's point of view, right? So you're just using the mulch to your advantage. If you put plastic over this, it'll make it even more accelerated to help things along that much more. Okay, so there I've got my rows. That's all ready to go. Want to find the soil. Dig down until you've actually got the soil exposed a bit. Once the plants are up, we move the mulch back to continue to cover the soil. You don't want your soil exposed, but this time of year it's not a big deal if you expose your soil a bit because it helps to get the sun at it and thaw up the ground and get the seeds to germinate, right? I just scuff that up with my hand a little bit like that. Loosen it, but that's all the tilling that's required, right? This is no-till gardening. It's all that you need to do. I'll put this stick here so I know that's where I stopped with my parsnips. Alright, so now plant these parsnips. If you get a little clump or ball of soil, the soil here is very clay-like. The existing soil in my entire garden is basically hard packed clay. That's what I started with. And I've gotten really good results just by adding horse manure and mulches. Horse manure is just the manure I have access to and I can get it for free. So you just use what you can get and work with it. Manure and mulches you can get. Source of good compost, use that. Alright. That's good. Put that, actually I got a bit of excess here. Let me put that aside. I'm going to do something with this. The bit of excess here, I'm going to actually use that in an interesting way that you'll see as we go along. Put that in a bucket actually, but anyway. Yeah, I'm just going to put some of that aside. Hang on a second here. I'm going to throw some of this excess seaweed in the wheelbarrow here, and you'll see what I do with it in a second. I find this technique works really well for getting things to germinate. I used this in one of my cold frames on my spinach, and it worked really well. So I'll just show this. Got a bit of excess here. I'm going to leave a good deal of the mulch on, except for the strips. But other than that, I'll take some of this off. Alright, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Alright, move this out of the way. Okay. I clean my hands off a bit here on my pants. Alright. Parsnips. Alright. This variety is called Albion. Among the whitest parsnips we have seen. Now let's have a look and see what we're dealing with here. All these seed packs have this nice little green strip that allows you to reseal after you've opened them. Parsnip seed is a very fragile little seed. You don't want to do this on a day where it's too windy. Luckily the wind isn't too bad today. I'm just going to plant one every, I don't know, 2 inches. I'll have to thin these out as the season progresses, as need dictates. Always good to plant a bit more than you need. Alright, that's good for that row. I'm planting one every inch or two. You know what an inch is, every couple centimeters. Actually, I'm going to create a little bit of a furrow here. My fingers, nothing too fancy. You know, most seeds you don't want to plant them any deeper than the actual height of the seed. You know, if you got a tiny seed, they should be barely covered. If you don't plant parsnips in your garden, I would say you're really missing out. They're relatively pest-free. They grow slowly, but they get bigger and bigger, and they continue to grow until, I don't know, October, November. And you harvest them around December, and you cut them up and roast them in the oven. My goodness. I like them more than carrots, roasted. A roasted parsnip to me is better than a roasted carrot from a flavor point of view. And they keep a very long time. Not only do they keep well if you put them in a cold room or some situation like that, but they seem to improve with storage. The flavor of them gets better and better as the winter rolls on. I'm all out of parsnips now. I've eaten all of mine, but they're definitely a good eating. They keep well, they taste good. Those are all the things I like in plant. I'm not being too fussy about how I'm planting these, because you know, I had parsnip seeds just blow around in my garden, land on the ground and grow on their own last year, so that tells me that they're not too fussy. Okay, so now I'm just going to push them down into the soil. Good contact. Slightest bit of cover. They'll find their way through that, no problem. That's it. Just push them down. Move a bit of stuff in from this side like that. That's all you need to do. It's important to be patient with this sort of thing. Nothing's going to happen anytime soon. These things take time. Be patient. Gardening's about patience. It's an exercise in patience, just like child rearing, right? It takes time and it takes patience. Don't rush anything. Alright, so I got that all done. Now, get a load of this trick. So I want a bit of a mulch to go over top of those seedlings I planted to keep the soil from, to keep the soil from drying out, and B, to attract heat to the soil. And just to, you know, you don't want your soil exposed. So I've got this excess seaweed and hay here. And all I'm just going to do is chop this up, make it a bit finer with these shears. I mean, the easiest way to do this would be to throw it on the ground and run over it with your lawnmower, but it's a bit wet. Alright, so now all I'm going to do is just distribute this lightly over the areas where I planted the seeds. And I'm pretty confident they'll find their way through this, no problem at all. But nature has a way of persisting. Not putting it on too deep, just enough so that you can't see the soil anymore. Right? Because you don't want your soil exposed. There's no soil exposed in nature, so there should be no soil exposed in your garden if you can avoid it. That'll keep the soil from drying out. It'll ensure constant moisture and will continue to feed the organisms in your soil. And you don't need fertilizers and things like that. You don't need to water, you don't need to fertilize. Right? You're just making it easy on yourself. If you like to make things easier on yourself, keep your soil covered. Okay, that's a light. So I only used about half of what I cut up in the wheelbarrow. That's fine. I'll distribute a bit here just around. Just be patient with this. Don't be impatient. Oh, let's hit this with a bit of water. I'm really not going to do anything with this from here on in. It's April. We get rain here in April, so this is all the watering I'm going to do. This is all the TLC I'm going to give these plants. I'm just going to let them take care of themselves unless we get some sort of really ridiculous dry spell. And I'm not going to cover these with any plastic because I want them to have similar conditions to the ones I planted in the fall. They're not being covered with plastic. These aren't being covered in plastic. They're just being left, left to their own accord. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, I hope that was useful. I hope that gave you some ideas. Even though it's still very early and a lot of the ground is frozen in lots of places, if you've got a patch of earth that's thawed, like this is, and you can see some worms moving around in the soil near the surface. If worms are moving around in your soil near the surface, it's you can get away with planting some things early. If this doesn't work out, I'll know in 2 or 3 weeks and I'll just replant. But we'll just see how it goes. It's always worth taking these sorts of gambles. I mean, I've used about 30 cents worth of seeds here, so what is there to lose? And now the sun, I can feel the power of the sun on my skin right now. It's going to hit this dark matter here. It's going to warm everything up. And, we get a few nice days like this, who knows what'll happen. So I hope that you found that useful. I hope you found that content useful. If you did, please subscribe. Check out my podcast, maritimegardening.com. Check out the links from my sponsors in the description. You got some coupon codes there. Until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching.